Welcome to the True Love Secrets Revealed online summit. Today we have with us Jeffrey Mark Levine. He is a brilliant man. He is so smart and so experienced coaching individuals and couples, which is very good because we haven't had any expert coaching couples. And yes, he has a ton of experience. How many years have you been a relationship coach now?
Well, about 10 years a relationship coach and 20 years, over 20 years as a coach.
This man, I don't want to keep talking. I'm so excited for you to learn. Grab your book, your notepad and your pen and take notes. We are going to be talking about a subject that is so dear to me because when I decided 20 years ago to do the work in this area of relationship, that was the first book I got me. It's called Nonviolent Communication. And we are going to be talking about communication, conscious communication in a relationship. So you want to take it from there?
Sure. I mean, the basis of my work, and you've said it very nicely, is that, I believe that many, if not all, most relationship problems can be solved or avoided altogether through conscious communication and a conscious attempt to connect. So, I mean, we're throwing around this term conscious communication.
Right.
I'll define that very briefly so, people know what we're talking about. It's a way of interacting with each other where you're using the skills of emotional intelligence, empathy, active listening, thoughtful responses, the removal of blame and judgment from the communication, mindfulness. And I think even when we're talking about our intimate partners, we're also talking about, we want to include kindness and care, and something I may talk a little bit more about, assuming positive intent. So in a nutshell, that's what I think conscious communication is.
I love that. Let's start to unpack it right there on the assuming positive intent.
Yes.
I love that because I hear it so much with women. I work with women only, with women that they believe that the guy is trying to hurt them, and it's not usually the case. So, what do you mean exactly by that?
Well, when I talk about this, I want to be very careful because there could be situations where the guy is trying to hurt them, either physically or emotionally. And so I want to be very careful, about throwing this term around. We're making the assumption that there is a commitment between the partners, that they're working on the relationship, that they're trying to improve the connection between them. And so they want to start to learn to have a mindset of assuming positive intent, starting from a place of, he is trying to fulfill some of his own needs. He is not trying to hurt me.
Right, right. And that does make a huge difference.
Mhm, mhm.
The way we are going to communicate. So, what is the difference that that makes rather
Well, what,
than is a
yeah,
jerk?
so what I would say, it's a really good question. I think what happens, and I'm kind of now going into what I think some of the challenges that come up in relationship and in the communication, is this whole process of what I call explaining and defending. And that what happens is that, somebody will say something, we don't assume positive intent. So then we feel like we have to defend ourselves, and we have to come up with, some reasons why what you're saying is wrong, or we have to further explain, here's really what I meant. When you start to do that, you disconnect from hearing what is actually going on over there. So this whole assume positive intent is to drive you, or to allow you to start to have some empathy for what's going on over there, even if they're not very good at expressing it, which often they aren't.
How do we have a conversation that is conscious that we are assuming positive intent when we are in a space that we are angry, or we are, our nervous system is totally dysregulated, and we are totally on freeze, flight, freeze, there is any way to kind of have a good, is it possible to have a conscious conversation when we are upset like that?
Well, is it possible? Yes, I hope that's possible. I think it's possible. I know it's possible for my own life. Can't speak for everybody, but here's what I'll say about that. Sometimes it isn't easy. And when we're bringing to a relationship our history, our baggage, our family of origin stuff that went on. I mean, I can talk about, my own story. My family of origin did not prepare me to be able to have conscious communication. The habits that I saw going on in my house growing up were not something that I wanted to bring into the my current life. And so we are, I think, in the process, hopefully, of trying to unlearn some bad behavior that is holding us back. So what I would say is that it has to start with each individual doing their own inner work.
Okay.
And realizing that what's going on with us is our own stuff. And that's where there's this whole concept of emotional intelligence comes in. You mentioned, how can we have a conscious conversation if we're feeling angry? And what I would say is that anger is, and this is the way I hold it, is that it's very often the surface emotion, that it's the reaction. So I'm angry because I'm feeling frustrated. I'm angry because I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm angry because I'm feeling lonely or disappointed. And so the key to starting to have these conversations is to speak those feelings instead of "Roar," and
Going this.
yes, yeah, instead of doing that, if you actually speak I'm really disappointed, or I'm feeling so frustrated, or if I am just overwhelmed, those are feelings that the other person can actually respond to with some empathy. You've started the conversation from a place where there can be some understanding. So I am not saying that this is easy or automatic, or it's like there's some kind of magic wand that's going to make this magically happen for you. It's a process of learning how to speak from a more conscious place, and that starts from understanding your own stuff,
Wow.
understanding your own emotions, understanding your own triggers, and learning how to regulate.
Yeah. Oh my God, so many questions.
Okay.
Big. I guess the one I'm gonna go for is something that you said about it's about two individuals choosing just to communicate consciously. What came up for me when you said that was, is it possible? Because sometimes, this, you work with couples all the time, how one person in the couple wants to do the work and the other one doesn't want to do the work. It's sometimes that happens. And so is it possible that one person doing the work can revert the whole relationship, can turn back the relationship to good again? Or there is a need of both of them actually doing the work together or separated, but both? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have some thoughts on it. So is it possible? I would have to say yes. However, the goal is going to be at some point to, pull the other person along with you. So yes, all the reading that you're doing, or the studying that you're doing, or the, learning new skills, that will, so as you start to practice that stuff, that will give you a lot of information about your partner. If your partner is not willing to face with you this challenge that you have, you have a real problem there, and it's, I don't know how else to say that. So ultimately, people outgrow each other and people get divorced, and that is maybe a possibility. So I don't want to say that this is like, again, a magic wand. I think that what has to happen is that you have to keep doing the work on yourself no matter what. You are an evolving human being on this planet. And the person that you were with, if they don't want to evolve as well and are not interested in evolving with you, that's a serious challenge and a serious problem. So maybe what I'm saying is ultimately for the disconnection to get healed, the rupture to get healed, it's going to involve both people willing to risk and be vulnerable and grow together and commit to doing that together. So I hope that's not, too much bad news.
No, I don't think so. I think
Okay.
it's the reality, and it makes total sense. It makes total sense. I mean, and the way I hear it, actually, it's very powerful because we, if I have that issue, I can start doing the work, and then hopefully he will feel inspired by that. He will feel better, and then
Mhm.
he'll be like, oh, okay, so let's see, what are you up to, and we'll get curious and try to do some of the work. but
Yes.
but I get what you said. Just one person doing the work and the other person not doing the work, it's just not gonna work. It's just
Ultimately that will it will reveal that one of the person not doing the work is not interested in the healing. And then the person that's doing the work can needs to make a choice or a decision about, okay, what do I do now?
right.
And it's like, so I don't try to tell people what to do. If you come to me and there's that's going on in your relationship and you tell me I'm willing to stay in a relationship that's disconnected, then it's like, okay, you're making your choice for your life, and I'm not gonna judge. It wouldn't work for me necessarily. um there was you said something and it kind of triggered a thought that I wanted to share, and I'm trying to bring it back. Um, I think that there's I guess I don't know if this is going to be if this is a good metaphor, but I'll use it anyway. That we're talking about sort of the menu for healing and then the ingredients for healing, and the
Okay.
menu I think has to start with a commitment of the two that we're gonna try to figure this out.
Okay.
We may be in different places, it may be hard, but it's like, yeah, we have some issues. We need to try to figure this out. So that's the first step of the recipe. That's what I meant, recipe and ingredients. That's what the words I was looking for. The second step in the recipe, I think, is what I call guidance, and that is getting some outside help. It's a coach or a therapist or a workshop, something where you're getting new information, you're being taught new skills,
Right.
you're being shown what to do and what to stop doing. Somebody that has an outside perspective that can focus more on the needs of the relationship. Very often we're hyper focused on our own needs, but there is what I call the third entity, the needs of the relationship. And the person on the outside, the coach, the therapist, the workshop even, can come from that perspective and provide that perspective. So that's the second one. So we've got commitment and guidance. The third one is practice, and you're going to be learning new skills. They're going to be uncomfortable and weird and feel awkward at first. And I draw the analogy to learning a musical instrument. Pick up a saxophone or a guitar, and it's going to sound lame when you first pick it up. And the more you do it, the more enjoyable it becomes and the better it sounds and the more fun it is. And it's the same thing for these communication skills. And the fourth piece is patience. You didn't
Mm,
hear you didn't get here overnight. It's not going to change overnight. So
right.
that's kind of the recipe, the steps that I think are necessary. And again, I'm talking in a idealized situation, maybe. then there's the ingredients. What are the things that you're going to kind of put into the recipe? What are the things you're going to actually do? And those are the things like, holding space, assuming positive intent, understanding and respecting each other's emotional triggers, I think is a good one. Making sure that each of your interactions is a connection, that you're trying to connect. And very often that means you have to let go of your ego. You have to let go of being right. You have to let go of explaining and defending. And so those are the things that are kind of, put into the recipe to make it work. So I just kind of gave you an overview of how I
Oh,
see the process.
you just gave us the recipe for a
Yes.
healthy relationship. There is so much to unpack on what you said because that's it.
Yeah.
If you have that, the rest is just fun. Talk about holding space. You mentioned that word a few times,
Yes.
and what do you mean by that, holding
Hmm.
space?
That's a really good question. The basic definition is to be able to create a safe and supportive and non-judgmental environment so that trust and vulnerability can blossom. So that's the basic definition.
Okay.
How it plays out often is, and why it's difficult at times, and I've experienced this certainly in my marriage and in conversations and learning to have more conscious communication, is that very often the other person just needs to vent, just needs to say stuff, just needs to get stuff off their chest, and maybe even say things they don't really mean, but they're angry or they're going through something. And so to be able to stand there and be just a solid, backboard, or being able to let them have their moment of expressing themselves without getting your own ego involved. And is that easy? Sometimes not, because if you hear something, if they accuse you of something, or if they say something that, doesn't sound right or sounds mean, it's like being able to go, okay, they're just going through something, and give them room to do that.
Right.
And I think that when you can develop that skill with each other, that's where you can have some real vulnerability. That's where you're allowed to be who you are at your messiest. Um, to be okay with the fact that you feel ugly things sometimes, and that you can say them without being put down or judged.
Yeah.
Very often what happens when space isn't being held, it gets back to this, what I think I mentioned it earlier, about explaining and defending. When you explain and defend, you're basically saying to the other person, don't feel how you're feeling, and here's
Mhm.
why. I have to offer this more information. I have to defend myself, or I have to explain something to you. You obviously don't understand, so I need to explain it. And that's saying to the other person, don't feel how you feel. I'm going to give you some more information so you can change how you feel. And that's I guess, the opposite of holding space, if you will. And so being able to control your own urge to dive into explaining, to dive into defending yourself in when they're having an emotional moment.
Right.
So that's about holding space. I'll give you one other example, and I think I talked about this in one of my newsletters that I sent out, and this was something that happened between my wife and I, and it was in January. A couple of kind of sad things happened.
Hmm.
Our dog passed away, our dog of 10 years, and that was very sad. And it was, my wife's kind of soulmate pet. And so she was having a rough time. But
So,
at the same time, a cousin of mine who I was very close to passed away.
Mhm.
And I had to go to New York over I was away on my wife's birthday because that was the day of the memorial.
Oh my
So
God.
it was like this big, soup of sadness and tragedy and feelings, and it was just really, really tough. And the story I told was how she called me while I was at the memorial because she was having a really rough time. And I feel the phone buzzing in my pocket. I didn't pick it up. I checked the message, and then I called her back when I had a moment, and I had to really hold space for her to express how alone she felt and how sad she was feeling. And she was on her birthday, and she wasn't trying to take away from, you shouldn't be at this memorial, this important event, but she needed the room
Yeah.
to have her feelings and express it. And she needed for me to really understand it. So I needed to hold space when I was, 1,000 miles away and trying to,
Really.
deal with my own grief.
Yes.
And
That's
so, and
all.
so I'm gonna, I have a couple more things to say because it kind of reminded me of something. It's what I call the emergency empathy. So
Okay.
there's gonna be times when you both have a need for empathy.
Right.
You both have it. And so one of the people in that moment are going to have to make the decision that I'm going to put my needs on hold temporarily in order to hold space for you to have your needs.
Right.
And so that you can express it, and I can not try to say, well, what about me? My cousin passed and I'm feeling sad. It's like that wasn't going to help. I needed to really be there for her, say, I really understand how hard this is for you. This is your birthday and you're feeling sad, and I'm so sorry that you're having to go through this alone right now.
Wow.
Period. There was no, but I'm in pain too. So, okay, that was kind of an example of, because we've,
Great.
know how to do some of this, we were able to work through it. So,
Yes. I love it. I love it. And you did answer what I was going to ask you, cutting you off.
okay. All right.
You answered it exactly, because what I was going to go, what are your needs? You said we temporarily put them on hold. It takes a high degree of being emotionally intelligent to do that.
Yes.
It's
Yes. But I mean,
not something parameters.
I mean, hopefully we're committed to, moving
Yeah.
in that direction. I mean, and that's why people are on this summit, and that's why,
Yeah.
whoever would call me, that's the journey they're on.
Yes. This is the most beautiful North Star that you could give us, I believe.
Hmm. Thank you. That's very sweet.
Yes, yes. Imagine if we all were working towards that North Star, and the world will be
Hmm.
so different. I love it. I love it.
You and I would have to find a different line of work, I think.
I know. I know, right? Oh my goodness. Oh, I can say so many things about that, but I'm not gonna say.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will use my own emotional intelligence to not do it. Wow, that
Good.
was beautiful. That was great. So then you came back home, and then did you get to talk about your own
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. So then there was a little space between, I came home, 2 days later or whatever, and we were able to actually, hey, here's what happened.
Right,
Here's what we went through. And like, okay, we made it through.
right. You know, when I am listening to you, and I am trying to listen into you as when I was in my 20s, when I haven't done the work. And back then I'll be like, what is he talking about? It's like, that is so hard. And now that I can use both my immature self and my more mature self, I can genuinely say that not working towards being this way, being emotionally intelligent and growing into a conscious relationship is harder. it's a lot harder. There is so much pain and hurt
Yeah.
and anger and resentment and oh my drama with capital letters.
Yes. Yes.
Really, it's like you do the work for as long as it takes you, then you get it. And of course, it's always a work in progress, but you somehow get it.
Yes.
Then that's it. You don't need to do the hard work anymore. That's the way I see it with my relationship with my husband.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and this is why, I make the distinction that most of my coaching is not around dating, but it's around couples who are already committed and have been together for a while. And because I've gotten a lot of, well, not because, and I've gotten a lot of like comments when I run articles on Facebook or Instagram or something where some women will say, why do I need to do all the work? And, I'm so tired of men and I don't want to have to fix them. And I hear that and I agree with a lot of that when you're dating. Don't try to fix a guy and make him into what you think he should be. And so if you're if you're dating, then find a guy where there's a good emotional match, where there's
Right, choose wisely, damn it.
exactly. And so, so I have to clarify, the work that I'm doing is, people that have, married or been in a relationship for 5, 10, 15, even 20 years. There's kids, it's complicated and they're disconnected and how they get back together. But if you're dating, then no, do your own inner work for sure. Learn about your own triggers and your family of origin stuff that you're dragging around with you. But yeah, don't knock yourself out trying to fix somebody.
Best words to love it, love it. I know you have a gift for our audience. Would you mind to share what the gift is about? It's about?
Sure. Absolutely. So I'm sure you've got the link somewhere, but it's
I
called.
got the link and I'm going to place it in the video and also on the email they are receiving.
Perfect. So it's called How We Created a Successful Long-Term Marriage and How You Can Too. And I've included what I consider the 10 essentials for a successful long-term relationship. And I also have Rory and I did I know it's kind of a master class interview discussion, whatever, where we talked through it and recorded it and then transcribed it. So you get the transcription of how many of these have played out in our marriage. So yeah, please download that. And also I've got, if you go to my website, jeffreymarklevine.com, I've got some other, some free stuff on there too. And feel free to shoot me questions for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. And when he says Rory, my wife, he's talking about the infamous Rory Ray. This man is married to the queen of feminine energy in dating, relationship, and now business, as I see. She's getting more and more into that, which I'm loving.
Yes.
Maybe she has been doing it forever. I don't know. It's kind of, I always knew her for her dating thing. So this is
That's
a
very sweet.
power
Thank you.
couple. Go to his website, grab the resources. It doesn't get any better than that. So please, please take advantage of this and practice and take action on it. This man is brilliant.